pastor because my wife got pregnant. That's just the reality. So I had no intention of being youth pastor. I went to Trinity Seminary. I thought I was too advanced, truly. I thought, I did camps and stuff, but I'm about to get an MDiv. I'm kind of a big deal. That's how I felt about myself. And I thought, that's cute, other people want to go into youth ministry, but I'm ready to do real ministry, right? And then my wife gets pregnant. We're still trying to figure out how that happened. But I was in full-time seminary, she was the breadwinner. All of a sudden, we don't have any income. And it's interesting. What do we do about that? So when my friend Matt stopped me on a walk on Trinity's campus up there in northern suburbs of Chicago and said, hey, do you need a job? I was like, I do, Matt. I do need a job because we're about to have zero income when my wife delivers this baby. And he told me that he had taken an interim youth ministry job at a church up the street. And he said the only way he was going to agree to do it is if he could hire someone to lead worship for the youth group. And he knew that I was a worship leader. And they were going to pay me $100 each Sunday night to lead worship. Now, this is in the dark ages when $100 is about $200. I looked it up. I Googled it. So think of getting paid. Basically, you just got to show up, lead some songs for some bratty little rich kids. That was my, understanding. And I'm going to get $200, I'm done. This is awesome. Thank you, Jesus. I'm going to do some worship leading. I'm going to make some money. And then again, I'm going to be out the door doing the more noble, the more incredible, wonderful things that God has called me, not in this silly little thing called youth ministry. Well, you guys, I accidentally fell in love with youth ministry, is what happened. So that summer, they said, hey, do you want to step into this role maybe in an interim basis full time because we don't have anybody else? And I was like, not really, but okay, if you pay me more, I will. And I go on the mission trip that summer to Mexico, and we all just sort of platonically fell in love with each other, like 15 high school kids and a bunch of families and me. We came back, and all of us, we were just like, man, when can we hang out again? This is incredible. God is at work in this place. And these students then started inviting their friends, and the ministry started to grow. And I truly was just I did not see this coming. I did not think I was going to. And then I kind of got mad that nobody told me that youth ministry is the best. I'm like, why didn't you guys tell me, one, that youth ministry is the greatest, and two, that I might be good at it? What's wrong with you people, And that, side note, not only is it the most fun ministry, but I would argue it's the most pivotal because you're taking young people at this incredible crossroads and you're changing the trajectory of their lives for many of them. And a friend of mine calls youth ministry, it's like time travel because it's like you're traveling back in time before they mess up their lives as adults. You're able to sort of, step back and say, don't do that, don't go that way. And then their lives look different. That's what youth ministry is all about. This is incredible. That's a digression. I got into youth ministry, right, because of the existence of my infant daughter. She ended up going on the very first fall retreat I ever led when she was 8 months old. And then, fast forward, she ended up I've got a photo of her. The students are just passing her around. And then, unbeknownst to me, she would go on 4 high school fall retreats herself. And then this coming weekend, she and her husband are flying up from Texas where they live and for something else, and we're going to visit the fall retreat. And so anyway, it's incredible that I got to do that. But her existence led me to youth ministry. And then what I didn't know would happen is that her existence and then the existence of my 3 next children would contribute to a thriving youth ministry. And the ministry ended up shaping them, both as children and then as students, and now one of them who's a leader in this ministry. So if ministry is about making disciples, which it is, there is this element where God uses your family your spouse, and your children as a part of that disciple-making process, both discipling students and their experience as disciples as well. So I've got 4 things I want to share. And the first one is kind of the big idea of today, which is that God will use your family to bless the ministry and use the ministry to bless your family. And all of this is strategic discipleship. So God's going to use your family to bless the ministry, if you will allow that. He's going to use the ministry to bless your family. And if you lean into that, it's strategic discipleship. So our job as youth pastors is to make disciples. And what I discovered is that integrating your family with students will help grow disciples. Well, what do I mean by that? I believe that there is a lot of youth ministry happening in the world that is polite youth ministry. It's not bad, and God's going to use all of our efforts, right? But my contention is that you've got to help move beyond polite youth ministry. What I mean by polite youth ministry is it's people who, they show up, half of them want to be there, half of them don't, and they answer the questions and they sort of say the things, and they know that the answer is probably Jesus about half the time, and so yeah, Jesus, we need more Jesus. I should read my Bible, I should pray more. And then they're like, is it time to go now? And then I can go hang out with my real friends, and I can kind of do what I want to do. That is a start. That is you've got to start somewhere. What you want to move into is much messier than that. And what I would call transformational discipleship, it's got to get more messy. And one of the ways to sort of get more messy, and what I mean by that is life-on-life discipleship, where students' walls are coming down, and they're not just polite. They're real. They're like, hey, this is hard, and I don't like this, and my home life is difficult. And if you're in a suburban context, a lot of times students don't think it's okay to be real. And so they need to learn that. And one of the ways, there's a lot of ways to do that, but one of the ways that that students will start to be real with you is if they are around you and your families. And that's what I found, is that because I entered this youth ministry with an infant, so they sort of only ever knew me with kids, is that teenagers love to be around kids. They love to be around babies. They love to be around kids. And if you will allow that, when you have children, if you will allow that sort of transaction to happen, whether that's bringing your kids to things, or even better, if you're willing to it and your spouse is up for it, inviting students into your home, that's when you'll start to see them, and you've got the kids end up being the thing that sort of, you can't help but be yourself, be real, when you've got kids saying silly things and whatever. And so my encouragement to you would be to think about how does it work to have students into your home. And the thing is, you don't have to have an event. It doesn't have to be like movie night or whatever, or bells and whistles. It can just be, hey, why don't you come over? We're going to have tacos. And, and you want to hang out for a bit and invite a few over, or whatever it is. And if possible, don't send them home before bedtime. Like, I know you're going to think, well, I don't want to bother them with the bedtime routine. No, let them see that. Let them see what it looks like for you to, get kids ready. And if you do some sort of a devotional practice, which you don't have to, but you can, and let them see what it looks like to read them a story before they go to bed and to pray with them. And as I thought about this, I realized, oh yeah, because that's what my wife and I got to see. We were mentored by a couple that had these young kids, and they would invite us over, and we watched their nighttime routine. And in fact, we actually lived in their basement for a couple of years. So we got to watch this kind of what Christian parenting looked like. And not only did we learn how to sort of what it would mean to be Christian parents, we just learned what it looked like to be Christians. We learned, and we had this connection, like these kids become the thing that sort of pull those walls down. All of a sudden, you have this common connection about, oh, they remember the kids did that fun thing, and like something changes in your relationship with students when they're in your home and when they're seeing you interact with your kids. I remember when we brought Kayla as an infant to youth group the first time, they lined up to hold her, and the boys were first in line. Like they were the ones that like that, which I was kind of surprised. I thought, the boys will all be like whatever. They were like they couldn't wait, and they were all washing their hands and just like they couldn't wait. So it became this draw, and of course I don't want it to sound utilitarian. Have a bunch of children to make disciples, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. But if you have children, then absolutely allow others into that part of your life and watch what God does with that. This is also true of your adult leaders too. We would have adult leaders over, and same kind of thing. Just let them interact, let them see the kids. So we've had college students, seminary students, and they feel the same way. And just being an example of what it looks like to sort of, they have a window into what your parenting looks like. It has a potential to change them.
Hey, Rated family, if you're listening to this podcast, then chances are you're someone who cares deeply about discipling the next generation. Whether you're a youth pastor, volunteer, or a parent in the thick of raising kids, we've got resources designed just for you. At Rooted, we've created curriculum and courses to equip you to walk alongside children and teenagers with confidence, clarity, and the gospel at the center. For youth ministers, we offer inductive Bible studies that keep Jesus front and center in every lesson. With 10 options for year-long studies on books of the Bible, 5 shorter topical studies, and a full scope and sequence, you can map out an entire discipleship plan for students in grades 6 through 12. If you don't know where to start, download our free scope and sequence guide. And we haven't forgotten our parents. Our family discipleship video courses are designed to equip moms and dads from birth through high school, covering everything from basic parenting principles to discipling teens. Use them in small groups, Sunday school, or at home. Whether you're leading from the pulpit or around the dinner table, Rooted's resources are here to support you every step of the way. Head to rootedministry.com and click on Curriculum and Courses to explore more and download your free resources today.
Your kids will bless the ministry, but the ministry will also bless your family. What do I mean by that? Well, I asked my 4 adult children, so my kids are 26, 24, 22, and 20. So I asked them all, hey, what did you guys like about being a youth pastor's kid? And also, what didn't you like? I wanted to hear everything. So my son said, my 22-year-old, he said he enjoyed being mini celebs at church. He said, he's like his dad. He likes attention. So he liked the fact that everybody was like, oh, hey, oh, yeah, oh, that's Foster. Oh, you're Syler's son, So he enjoyed that. They obviously loved the fun. So like whenever I would have to rent a 15-passenger van, for instance, or one time I drove an actual school bus. Like, I would bring it home before I'd have to take it back, and they're just like, minivan, the van's here, the bus is here, and they just would play, they loved, and I just have memories of like, they would just go in there, and I have no idea what they did in there, but they loved it. It was like the new toy for a while, and a couple times we rented inflatables for a youth ministry event, and of course, they're there early, they're there late, all that fun stuff that just because there are some things that aren't great about being a pastor's kid or youth pastor's kid. So the more things that you can sort of do and then remind them, like, hey, remember guys, this doesn't happen if you're not a pastor's kid. So remember that when, it is bad to not have a lot of money. So when we're telling you that all 4 of you have to share one drink at Chili's, remember that you also get to play around in a van, okay? Let's just keep that pluses and minuses, right? my oldest, she's 26, and she's a volunteer at her church's youth group as well. She said being known in the church, that one of the bonuses, the good things about being raised as a youth pastor's kid, she said she loved being known in the church by people from all different generations. And I was like, oh, all right, intergenerational integration, here we go. That's cool. But she said she really liked the fact that people of all ages knew her. Teenagers knew her, 40-somethings knew her, people in their 60s and 70s knew her, and she liked knowing who they were. Now she's an extrovert, so she liked tagging along to special events. So I would, especially when they were young, I would just, who wants to come? We're going to a grad party, and so they're going to have really good cake there, guys, really good cake. Let's go, and so they're like, I'm in, So they loved doing that stuff. And they loved, like she said, we had top tier babysitters because the teenagers they would love to babysit. Side note, offer to pay the teenage babysitters. Some of them will say, oh, no, of course not. But some of them won't, and they, so always offer to pay. Sometimes they'll refuse. But then, so all of that was really beneficial to her, sort of the other people, et cetera. But then Kayla, again, the oldest, she said this about me having her dad be her youth pastor. She said a positive was having 24/7 access to someone to ask all my hard theological questions to. And then she said taboo things were not taboo to talk about because I watched you get up and talk about it in front of big groups of people. So she saw Dad handling difficult questions, a lot of times in smaller settings. Maybe it was on a retreat, maybe it was the student ministry team in our home, but and we found out later, there was a period for a few years where we would have our student ministry team, group of juniors and seniors, which side note, having a student ministry team is transformational, it's incredible. If you are thinking about it, do whatever you can to do it. Email me, I'd love to help you make that happen, but it's a huge, important thing in high school ministry. And we would have them meet in our home. And Kayla was probably in 4th or 5th grade at this point. So we would put her to bed at 8 o'clock, and then the students would show up at 8:15 and stay till 9:45. It's pretty late on a school night, but this is how it did. Unbeknownst to us, Kayla would wander out of her bed and sit at the top of the stairs and listen to me teach. And a lot of times it was on difficult subjects related to sexuality or kind of tougher subjects that we weren't tackling in a large youth group setting. So she's hearing me as a 10, 11-year-old talk to teenagers and just taking it all in and learning, oh, okay, so you can talk about this stuff. And oh, my dad is someone I could ask questions to if I need to. So that, I didn't know that would be a thing, but it was a thing. My second oldest said that she liked learning how to be around older kids at a young age and the importance of growing your faith. She said it made me want that when I was older. So she's learning as she's growing. She's seeing, like an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, when they see a teenager, they're the greatest. There is no greater person in the world than a teenager. So when they watch a teenager want to grow in their faith, boy, does that make an impact. Boy, does that make an impression. And it makes them go, man, when I get to high school, I can't wait to be a part and grow my faith. I was also nervous about how it would be when my kids got into my ministry. I sort of thought, surely God knows better than to have me be my kid's youth pastor. I really was when my oldest is entering high school, a golden chariot is going to fly from the sky and say, da-da-da-da, here is your new job, Syler, because everyone knows that it's the most ridiculous thing ever for you to be your kid's youth pastor. And the golden chariot didn't arrive, and I ended up doing that. And I don't think, it's not every youth pastor's kid is going to love youth group. I'm sure that isn't the case. I was actually surprised. And, with 4 kids, I figured, okay, one of them is going to push back. One of them is going to be like, please, Dad, I don't want to do this. To my great delight, for 4 years, not a single one of my students ever on a Sunday night, one time, said, I don't want to go. In fact, in many cases, there were like easy opportunities for them to be like, yeah, I think I'll sit this one out, or I don't want to go. And they didn't miss a Sunday. And it wasn't, if anything, it was probably like having their dad, and sometimes being around so much, it becomes, and I'm going to get to some of the things that are less hard or more hard, but it's because they part of it was that I think they watched this youth ministry their whole lives, and then all of a sudden it's their time, and they get to be a part of it, and they get to step into it. And again, I didn't expect that. I sort of thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought it was going to be like, oh, this is, my old man's there all the time, because they certainly didn't have a choice in the matter that their dad was going to be there. But they were ready to, they were actually excited about it, like it was their turn to be a part of it, which was really fun. And one moment I'll just point to. We would bring the kids to the retreats. My wife would often come when they were older, and I just remember this one moment when in youth ministry sometimes you go in phases where it's like sometimes there's a lot of really like vibrant. Maybe you've got a worship time, and there's a vibrant, demonstrative thing happening where a lot of kids are raising their hands, and they're just like, and then some you just go through phases where kids are a little, they're not as demonstrative or whatever. Well, we were in one of those phases where it was like, people aren't really raising their hands in worship, which again, I don't ever tell them, oh, come on, you guys, raise your hands in worship, but you just sort of, there wasn't a vibrancy. And so we were on this one retreat, and the worship leader had really done just a great job of saying, hey, we want you to experience all that God has for you. And maybe that would include at some point feeling the freedom to lift up your hands in worship. And he tried it on this one worship session, and like no one's doing it. And I was like, well, that failed. Good job, buddy, but that was a disaster. And then at the evening session, there's this one song from a long time ago. Many of you remember it, called "The Stand." Side note, when you play a worship song where the song says, I lift my hands, sometimes that will make them do it, and so that was one of those songs, I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned. And we had done that song for months and months, and I'll stand with arms high and my hands in my pockets. Just again, fine. I'm not going to manipulate anything. I'm not going to make something happen. But for whatever reason, in that moment, in that night, like everybody in the group, they're putting their hands up. And Kayla, I remember, she's probably 12 years old. She's standing right next to me, and I've got my arm around her, and I was emotional. And I was just like, God is at work. Like there's something happening. There's a freedom being released into the room. And, I tear like falls down, my face. And she kind of does a double take, like, what's going on with Dad? Because I'm not typically a guy that cries. But I just remember, man, when that was all over, I just thought, I'm so glad that my daughter got to experience watching this happen and seeing, sort of how that affected me. Just one of those moments that I'm grateful for, that you can't really manufacture, but when it happens, it's powerful.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Kwame, and I have been serving in youth ministry at Centennial Church in Forest Lake, Minnesota for more than 20 years. I'm also the author of More to the Story, Deep Answers to Real Questions on Attraction, Identity, and Relationships. And I've had the honor to write Rooted's new curriculum on biblical sexuality. It's a 9-week short study that goes through key passages in Scripture about the topic of human sexuality. And our hope and prayer with it is that it would help students to see why their sexuality matters so much and how they can honor God with their bodies and their relationships. We also hope and pray that it is a tool for you as you navigate the tough questions that our students are asking with gospel truth.
that's number one. The rest of the points are going to go a little faster, but you're making disciples, and there's this cool thing that happens where you make disciples where the family blesses the ministry and the ministry blesses the family. That's one. Number two is that you do have to figure out what boundaries make sense. You've got to have boundaries related to your family, protecting their time and helping them to know that you are always going to put them first. There's going to be times when, hey, you got to be gone. You're at retreats and mission trips and things, and emergencies come up. But they know that Dad is going to put them first. So, in the early years, we were the house. The kids are young, and people were stopping by all the time. So we realized, and this is before texting. So, it's just some phone calls, but sometimes people just stop by, and we were like, we have to figure out some way where this doesn't just happen every night. So we sort of told the students, hey, they know where we live. If the outdoor light is on, feel free to stop by. Knock on the door, hang out. If the outdoor light is off, you are not invited. Please don't come. So we kind of worked out a system there, but now it's much easier to you can text. You can say, hey, yes, this is good. Hey, no, it's not. My wife and I were very deliberate about having a day off during the week. I get a day off during the week as a pastor, and so we would have an evening before where sort of phones are off, and then the whole day phones are off. I'm not, I'm only taking a call if it's an emergency. Otherwise, she knows that time is protected. And boundaries are good for both parties as well. It's like I said, it's important for your kids to see you saying no to students. No, I can't come over. I can't do that. You can't come over. I'm guarding this. But it's also important for your students where they're like, dude, hey, you should come to this thing we're doing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't make it. I got to go home. I got to be with my family. It's important for them to see you saying no to them because they know, oh, yeah, right, because the family is the most important thing. You're present. I'll be there. I can come to this, but no, I can't come to that because I committed to being with my family, and that's more important. So both of those people need to see you making those boundaries. So that's number two, boundaries. Figure it out, whatever works for you, but boundaries are how you don't burn out. Number three is just a simple one. Get your kids permission if you're going to tell stories about them. So I made that mistake a couple times, and just make sure they know. And if they say, no, I don't want you to tell that story, then okay, I won't tell that story. I remember another time I told a story and I kind of made it anonymous, one of my kids, and I didn't say which one, and it was about my son, and he's like, well, give me a little credit next time. Give me, again, same kid, loves the attention. I'd like a little, so he actually wanted me to say my son so that he could get the attention. Sometimes they want you to tell stories about him, sometimes they don't. And then the last piece I want to talk about is if you get to the point where you are, I would say, blessed enough to be your kid's youth pastor. As I said, I didn't think it was going to happen, and I thought it was going to be a disaster, and it turned out to be a total privilege. But there are two things to consider very practically is that you should, if possible, find other people to talk about sex when your kids are in the room. Because you can imagine how terribly awkward and uncomfortable it is to be the person who talks about that. I was, every 4 years we would talk about sex on our fall retreat, and it was the time when my oldest was there to do it, and I just did a different topic because I totally just flaked out. I was like, I can't do it, and I didn't have anybody ready, and I was just like, I'm too nervous to do it, which is the wrong move. Like you need to cover it. Those are important things to cover, but see if you can find other people to give those talks. And then the other thing that the reality of when your kids become teenagers, and if you're still in their life as their pastor, is that you need to give your kids space to have their friends and not, sort of over youth pastor their friends, especially while they're around. My daughter, my oldest, the one who was very gung-ho, overall about having her dad be her youth pastor, she said, Sometimes I just wanted to have my friends over and not have them acknowledge my youth pastor dad. Like she just wanted to be a normal teenage kid who's just like has her friends over and they're not like, oh, let's say hi to Syler, whatever it is. Like just sort of, she wished she could turn that switch off. So just be aware of that, acknowledge that like your relationship with your kids' friends who are in the youth group, you just got to be aware of that, and that it's going to be different than it might have been if they were just another. Doesn't mean you ignore them. It just means you kind of are just aware of that dynamic between them, and maybe there's other ways to minister to them, or you're making sure there's someone else who's stepping in to minister to them, because it is hard. It's hard to, in those. As much as it was good, it can be hard to just always have your dad around, or whatever that spouse, whatever that parent is. Overall, though, they all sort of said that the negative stuff was mostly hard when they got into the ministry themselves. But she did say that now that she's older, she's thankful for all the shared experiences, and she actually said that the skill of because the other component that a couple of them commented on was it was hard to hear because everybody criticizes everything, right? So something that's going right. So they would hear that criticism about the youth group or about that talk or whatever it was. So it's their dad, right? And mostly they like their dad. So it's sort of like that was hard to hear in the moment. But looking back, she said that the skill of learning how to hear criticism about someone you're connected to and not making it about yourself is super helpful in adulthood and life. And she said even now that she's married, that was a helpful skill for her to learn. So you are giving them skills that you didn't know about by allowing them to experience bad things, right? So I want to end with the story of kind of the most, again, back to the fall retreat. The fall retreat was always a highlight for me as a youth pastor. So I did it for 25 years, and a year ago, I stepped into a new role. I oversee student ministries and small groups, but we have somebody else who leads the high school ministry. So like last year, fall retreat was the first fall retreat I didn't go to, just to give everybody space and give the new guys space. And hopefully, like I said, next week we're gonna visit. She's gonna come into town. Her husband's gonna be there, so we're gonna go visit so that he can see the fall retreat place we go to and all that stuff. So Kayla, right? She's an infant, 8 months old. Our first fall retreat. She goes on 4 of them. Her senior year fall retreat. It's the Saturday of that retreat. It's going to be her last fall retreat. And I was just walking through the beautiful fall foliage in southern Wisconsin, where we go to from the northern suburbs of Chicago. And I was just thinking about, this is her senior year. My oldest, she's going to be going away to college soon, getting nostalgic, getting a little wistful. And I was overcome with emotion, but it wasn't sadness that it was ending. I actually started, I was crying, but because I'm a Christian, I'll say I was weeping, because Christian, we weep. So, I really like burst into tears, like tears streaming down my face, walking alone in the woods on a Saturday afternoon, because of how grateful I was. I was just this wave of gratitude. And I just was praying, Lord, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I got to be around for my child's, all of these spiritual high points and some low points too. But like most parents, they don't get to go on their kids' retreats and mission trips and be there and know their friends and know, so as you can tell, I'm an evangelist for youth pastoring into your kids' teenage years. Most don't get there, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I got to sort of see that and feel that sense of gratitude that I got to experience it. And so I was just like, Lord, thank you. That I got to do that. And then I got to do that. She was our oldest, so Number 2, number 3, number 4, I got to be there for all of them. So I'm so grateful for all of that. And I want to see as many people, Lord willing, that if that works, is in the cards for them to stay in the game long enough to get there.